Bunny and Baja and the Kingdom Underground by Bunky Gerbrandt. Audio version. Chapter 1.
It was a dark and stormy night at the Baja laboratory. Lightning cracked and the wind pounded against the window panes, threatening the Baja,
interrupted Bunny with a sigh.
It was a Tuesday at like 3 p.m. It was a calm, sunny 78 degrees.
Dramatic effect, Bunny. Surely you've heard of it.
Baja continued with his story.
Excuse me. It was a dark and stormy night. Lightning cracked, and the wind pounded and howled against the cold steel structure of the Baja laboratory.
It's a tiny, rusty, smelly old corrugated shed in the backyard.
Bunny could never let Baja tell a story uninterrupted.
Look, Bunny,
Baja retorted, becoming increasingly ruffled by Bunny's heckling.
I'm using my imagination, okay? Surely you have one of those too. Would it kill you to suspend your disbelief for just one cotton-picking minute? This is the only thing I will embellish. You've got to have a good opening, you know. Let a man speak.
Baja paused and took a deep breath, his face returning from its boiling frustration to a calm animation.
It was a dark and stormy night.
He paused, looking up toward Bunny and Jeff, waiting to see if Bunny was going to cut in and stifle him again. Sensing he had clearance, at least for the moment, he continued to tell his story.
I was in my laboratory, getting ready to run further experiments in which I attempt to raise the vibrational frequency of various organic objects. Now, if you aren't familiar with my work, the premise of these experiments is that matter and energy are interchangeable, and both of these states of energy are constantly vibrating. As matter and energy vibrates faster and faster, the particles, which I call pockets of attractive energy, begin to dance and sway and bump into one another, like concertgoers in a mosh pit, or crowds lining the streets for a protest.
Or crazed brides-to-be at a doorbuster bridal sale,
interjected Bunny, having just watched a TV show called Unbridled, where brides-to-be go crazy competing for the best dresses and accessories. He was imagining a bunch of women cramming themselves through the opening of a department store entrance, then knocking into one another in an attempt to get the best dress. Bunny had been to lots of these bridal sales himself. In fact, he was known to have spent days planning and training himself in preparation for them. You will see that Bunny is a complex and colorful rabbit.
Something like that, maybe,
said Baja, really not understanding what Bunny had said.
Anyway, as the particles bump and sway and dance, they create space between themselves with their momentum, and the density of the substance they represent thins out, giving the substance a lighter, more etheric quality. My theory was that as the momentum of the particles picks up, the substance becomes increasingly light and airy-looking until we can no longer see it.
Is that what happened to Donald Trump's hair?
Asked Bunny with an enthusiastic bit of snark. Baja did not even register the comment. Jeff and Bunny were sitting on the sofa, attentive to Baja, who began pacing back and forth again on the coffee table as he lectured to his two roommates.
I have a theory that there are many different layers of life that could be existing within the same space, just vibrating at different frequencies, making them invisible to the naked eye, and also invisible to one another. There could be many different worlds that are going on right here, right now, that we just don't know about because we cannot see them. We cannot see them because they are not in our frequency.
Jeff was trying to pay attention to Baja, but was focused upon wondering where Baja had been. Baja had been missing for several days, nearly a week, in fact, and had only just returned that morning. Jeff didn't understand what any of this frequency stuff had to do with his tiny stuffed rabbit friend's mysterious absence. He wanted Baja to cut to the chase and just tell him where he had been. But somehow, with the strange events that had been transpiring during Baja's lost days, he thought that things might be a bit more complicated than a short story could reveal. Patiently, Jeff kept quiet and listened as attentively as possible. Baja, sensing that all of this talk about matter, energy, and vibrational frequencies might be going a bit over the heads of his companions, decided to bring his storytelling down to a more practical level.
Okay, I can see you are wondering what all this has to do with anything. You must be patient, I will get there. But in order for you to understand where I have been, you must first understand the nature of the experiments I have been conducting. So bear with me, okay? Pretend you're in a science class and I am your teacher.
Oh, you can be like Bill Nye the Science Guy, except shorter and more fuzzy,
said Bunny, sensing Jeff's annoyance level as it climbed.
Never mind, keep going, please.
All right,
said Baja.
I thought of something that can help us illustrate all of this. Take, for example, the blades of a ceiling fan.
Baja pointed to the fan above their heads in the center of the living room.
Jeff, sit here in this comfy chair.
Baja slid over toward Jeff's ankles, which were propped on the coffee table, and grabbed Jeff's pant leg to prompt him to move from the sofa to the chair. Jeff sluggishly complied, settling in comfortably to the well-worn cushion on the large red chair. Baja scooted to the top of the chair and over to the light switch, turning on the ceiling fan. He continued his explanation.
Have you ever sat in your comfy chair and stared up at your ceiling fan as it went around? I sometimes find myself trying to single out each blade and follow it around with my eyes.
Jeff looked up, appearing to be very focused, trying to see each fan blade. Baja climbed up into Jeff's lap and leaned back, looking up at the fan with him. They sat there silently for a few minutes, while Bunny remained on the couch, observing the two of them with a comedic eye. After another moment, Baja shook his head as though loosening the cobwebs and resumed his explanation to Jeff, who was still staring up at the fan, mesmerized.
Usually, I get nauseous, especially in the morning after a long night at the pub, and then I wind up having to clean this morning's partially digested toasted pastries off of my comfy chair.
Jeff looked down at the side of him and the stain on the chair. He had been wondering about that stain for quite some time and was now gazing at it as though a great mystery had suddenly been solved. Baja was still talking, consumed by his own thoughts.
But if I were to start the fan at the lowest speed, then watch the blades go around slowly while keeping my eyes fixed on a single blade, then turn it up a bit, and so forth, I would be able to watch the blades get blurrier and blurrier until they became invisible. Do you see?
Baja had climbed onto the coffee table and grabbed for his helping hand, a robotic hand on a stick that he created to help him reach and grab things that were up high. He used the helping hand to pull the long chain on the ceiling fan, increasing the fan's speed as he continued his explanation. Jeff was, again, watching the fan blades with Baja.
You can see that the blades become harder to see, even invisible, as the rotational speed of the blades increases.
Baja pulled the chain again.
Does this mean the blades are disappearing? This big dent on the side of my head I got while standing on a ladder and trying to find out is proof that they are not. Instead, they are moving at a speed that makes them invisible to us. Does this make sense?
Jeff was still staring at the ceiling fan, but Bunny looked oddly interested. Baja began to direct his explanation at Bunny, knowing that eventually Jeff would catch up.
Take also a pot of water boiling on the stove. As the water heats up, the water molecules move faster and faster, becoming less and less dense as the particles gain momentum and bounce farther and farther apart from one another. They are also not actually disappearing, but becoming less dense and therefore less visible.
Oh, like the steam I use for my morning facials,
related Bunny, finding another point of commonality.
That's exactly it,
replied Baja.
And when the steam hits your face, you can feel it a little, and you know it's wet like water, but you can barely see it until it cools, condenses, and accumulates on your face. Very good example.
Bunny didn't really know what Baja just said, but was feeling rather smart anyway. Baja maintained the enthusiastic momentum in his lecture.
So, I realized that we might be able to make things other than ceiling fan blades or water disappear by using the same principles. Increase their vibrational frequency and make them invisible to the eye while maintaining their basic blueprints of chemistry and structure.
Baja was pacing and talking loudly with sweeping gestures. Bunny deflected his attention from what Baja was saying and suddenly became concerned that with the absent-minded pacing, Baja would fall off the coffee table. Baja did not notice that he was in any danger as he carried on with his speech, coming closer to the edge with each sweeping gesture. Bunny gathered a blanket and pillow from the sofa to put beneath the table in case Baja fell. Bunny was always looking out for Baja in this way, as Baja's propensity for injury was infamous.
This idea, this theory, was very exciting to me.
Baja shouted.
I might actually be able to make some of the things around me invisible. Think what fun I could have. I could create an invisible car to drive. I could invent an invisible airplane, invisible water balloons, some invisible ice cream so I wouldn't get in trouble from my girlfriend for eating it. And, oh, what fun I could have on Halloween. All kinds of things. I absolutely had to find a way to do this.
Now Jeff was listening, and with wonder and amazement at such a thought.
So, over the course of time,
said Baja,
I began to collect many parts of electronic things, and from these things, I created Lola.
Wait, you made a girlfriend?
asked Bunny, now again very interested in Baja's story himself. But Jeff knew that Baja must be referring to the large machine that had been in his laboratory, a machine that was, up to this point, unidentifiable to them. Jeff and Bunny had trained themselves not to ask about Baja's inventions, except the occasional, "How much is the damage you do with this invention going to cost?" But just because they didn't ask doesn't mean they were not ever curious, especially about this one. This machine was far bigger and more elaborate than anything Baja had ever created before. It was also stationary, a permanent installment in the lab, where most of Baja's inventions were on wheels and or designed to be light, portable, and mobile.
Lola is not my girlfriend. My girlfriend is a squirrel, and her name is not pronounceable in English. No, Lola is that big machine in the shed, and it is designed to create and project combinations of sound frequencies which alter the electromagnetic field and are capable of raising the vibrational frequencies of matter. If you want to see how it works, I can show you later. I've been experimenting with all kinds of household and natural objects, but it seems to work better with objects that are more organic, that are closer to a natural state. Synthetic materials just tend to burn up and disintegrate.
So, you've already been able to make things invisible? Jeff asked anxiously, not believing that any of this could really be happening.
Sort of, but I'm getting to that. I tried it with a few things, but kind of burnt them up a little,
said Baja with a hint of guilt in his voice.
Don't tell me that's what happened to my new full leather jacket. I found one of the buttons from it on your lab floor not long after it turned up missing, and there's a certain smell of burning plastic, interjected Bunny, looking suspiciously at Baja. Baja offered a hint of confirmation.
You really shouldn't leave your things lying around,
Baja said, turning his eyes downward and tapping his foot nervously.
It was hanging in the hall closet,
Bunny argued angrily, his ears pulled back in aggression.
Yes, and it looks almost exactly like the aviator jacket I wear when I'm working on my model planes. My aviator jacket gives me inspiration, so I went looking for it, and it was dark, and the light in the closet had been broken ever since my peanut gun accidentally went off while I was cleaning it.
Baja felt bad, but it had been dark and late at night, and Baja thought it was an honest mistake. Bunny disagreed.
Your aviator jacket was like a 1,000-year-old smelly thing with holes in it, and you knew full well it was destroyed because you left it in the yard where the neighbor's St. Bernard puppy was teething.
Baja had forgotten about that.
Well, I'm sorry, Bunny,
said Baja sincerely.
I'll get you a new one this weekend.
Well, actually, you sort of already did. When I thought you were gone for good, I auctioned off one of your rocket doohickeys on eBay.
Oh, that's how Lou got it then,
said Baja, looking pleased and satisfied that another mystery had been solved.
That's so good. I would have wanted him to have it. He's planning to send his mother-in-law to the moon, if you know what I mean.
What? Said Jeff, alarmed.
No,
corrected Baja.
Her ashes. She died several years ago, and she'd always wanted her ashes to go up in a rocket ship.
Oh, Jeff paused. I'm sorry. He paused and thought for a moment. That's actually really, really cool. Jeff's thoughts then wandered to what he might want to do with his own ashes. He suddenly imagined them being scattered behind a motorcycle on Haight and Ashbury in San Francisco. Perhaps the motorcycle would be driven by Regina Spektor or Rose McGowan. Baja suddenly saw in his head the image Jeff was imagining, and without questioning how he could somehow see what his friend was thinking, instinctively brought the conversation back around.
Jeff, focus. I get the pretty girl on the motorcycle thing, but can I finish my explanation? You do want to know where I've been, don't you?
Jeff looked at Baja, stunned, quite sure he hadn't expressed his thoughts aloud. Buddy looked at them both, puzzled and wondered where in the world that comment had come from. In spite of his curiosity and propensity for sarcasm, Bunny bit his tongue and allowed Baja to go on. Jeff, donning a confused stare, said nothing. How had Baja just read his thoughts? Perhaps he said something aloud and did not recall doing so. Baja, not realizing what had just happened, continued without pause.
So, for this particular experiment in question, I used a peach, a jade plant, and some peanuts. My hope was to achieve the desired result of raising the vibrational frequency of these objects without raising the temperature to harmful levels. My fear was that, like the jacket and some other things I used, the objects would heat up too much and melt while giving off icky toxic smoke. I didn't want to keep damaging things forever, especially anyone's lungs. And the goal was, of course, that the full molecular and structural identity and coherence of the objects would be maintained. I was later told that this phenomenon is sometimes called phase conjugation. Essentially, I hoped that each object placed within Lola's ray would remain exactly like it is, pristine, except lighter and less dense. So, I placed each of the objects within an area on my lab floor that was marked with a tape to denote the projected range of the electromagnetic field after it's amplified by Lola. I had run several of these experiments and found that the objects were heating up a bit, and I wanted to ensure their safety, so I made some minor adjustments and prepared to begin again. I had begun the next round of experiments using the jade plant, mostly because I was eating the peanuts, and the peach I picked had rolled between the file cabinet and the refrigerator beyond my reach.
Baja had once remembered that the peach was probably still there, and that it was probably pretty fuzzy and smelly sticking up his lab by now. He continued,
I positioned the plant in the designated area and set Lola to medium-low. I powered her up as usual with the engine that runs on leftover vegetable oil I use from my famous fried cheesy sticks. Within a few seconds, I spun around, expecting to see little effect, and was utterly shocked to see that the jade plant had completely disappeared. There was nothing left but the pot it had been in, a little vermiculite, and the melted remains of a plastic identifier tag. The plant itself was completely gone. I was so surprised I inhaled the peanut I'd been munching on and began to choke violently. In choking, I again spun around and fell off my countertop onto the taped-off area directly into the field of Lola's energy beam.
Jeff and Bunny were sitting on the edges of their seats in disbelief, but completely engrossed in Baja's tale. It's not every day that you hear that someone has made something disappear in real life.
I had a brief realization that I had fallen into the stone, but was mostly trying to dislodge the peanut from my windpipe so that I could breathe. I remember feeling and hearing a humming sound, and then suddenly, still choking, I found myself in a completely different place. Even in my panic, I noticed that the place in which I found myself was very clean. It was not at all like my lab, where the floor was covered with crumbs of many foods, spilled chocolate milk, dirt, and leaves. This was very clean indeed, but still, with the not breathing, it occurred to me that I might have died, and maybe this was heaven or something. I could hear in the background the sound of a little boy's voice calling for his father. Then I thought perhaps I had somehow wound up in the neighbor's house. It's funny what you think of when you think you're about to die. Wow, the neighbor's house is a whole lot cleaner on the inside than I would have thought. And what is this floor made of? It's so pretty, like sparkly stone. And then I remembered again the choking. This all happened very fast, but time seemed to be going by very slowly because of the threat of dying and all.
Jeff and Bunny looked as though they were struggling to keep up with Baja's fast-moving tale. This was, even for Baja, a truly unbelievable story. They were both secretly wondering if they were still asleep.
Next, I remember that I was losing consciousness. I was picked up by what seemed to be a huge hand. I felt kind of a mild electrical jolt, and the piece of a peanut went flying through the air. After catching a good deep breath, I suddenly felt just fine. Very strange, but nice.
Baja's voice was fading as he had overworked it in his excitement, and he took a sip of warm tea from his X-Men Wolverine sippy cup.
The huge hand set me, and very gently I might add, back onto the shiny clean floor, and upon the soft landing, although my eyes were very blurry, I looked down and noticed I wasn't wearing any clothes. I became very embarrassed, and I ran for the corner and hid behind the plant. I noticed, oddly, that it appeared to be the same jade plant, but in a new pot, which was similar to the old pot, but glowier. I just made that word up, I do that a lot, but it works for me, so humor me, okay? Glowier. In fact, it seemed that everything around me was very much glowier indeed. I stopped myself thinking for a second, and remembering that I was an unannounced guest, I spoke to apologize for my intrusion and for not being dressed. In my confusion, I still had not looked up to see whose hand had assisted me. I suddenly heard a loud, booming, clear voice. It sounded like Morgan Freeman. That comforted me. I like Morgan Freeman. But how did I get into Morgan Freeman's house? My gosh, I thought, my neighbor is Morgan Freeman. Then I thought again that maybe I was dead. And I remembered a movie where Morgan Freeman played God, and I thought, God really is Morgan Freeman. That's really incredibly cool. Strange thoughts I was having. I was a little out of my senses, having been recovering from oxygen deprivation and possible death. The booming voice was laughing, and then it said,
Do not worry, little one. You have no reason to be ashamed of your natural state. Come, and I will get you some clothes.
Looking up, I felt a bit like what humans must feel like when they look directly up at a skyscraper. This was definitely not Morgan Freeman. This man was blonde, almost white-haired, and had purpley blue eyes, and was like 10 feet tall, at least. I could barely see his head, it was so far away. Maybe I've shrunk myself, I thought, like in that ride at Disney based on that movie with the dad who accidentally shrinks his children while performing an experiment. Where is Rick Moranis when you need him? I was wondering, was I smaller, or was this guy just really, really tall?
Baja was barely taking a breath, so excited to be sharing his story.
So this huge, blonde, purply-eyed dude introduced himself.
You may call me Lokar,
He said.
and this is my son Danis.
He was still sounding all Morgan Freeman-like. Then a young boy, a huge boy, but looked probably to be a young boy, came around the corner into the entryway, dressed in a tunic and pants that looked like something from a science fiction character, or perhaps like something a person from India might wear.
Baja cleared his throat before continuing.
The big man, Lokar, continued to speak.
No, I do not believe you have shrunk.
He said.
We are all very tall, much taller than your humans,
Again, I was very surprised.
Baja said.
You're humans? I thought, what the heck does that mean? And Lokar? Wasn't that a cartoon character or something? And about the shrinking, had I spoken those thoughts aloud? I don't think so. Had this man read my thoughts? All of these things were running through my head a mile a minute.
Jeff and Bunny didn't say a word while Baja told his story. If it hadn't been for the evidence Baja left and the highly unusual artifact he brought back, they would have thought that Baja had been munching on a trumpet vine once again, although neither one of them had completely dismissed this possibility yet. Baja continued to tell his tale. We are telepathic, my friend.
Lokar answered, as if in response to my thoughts. That was creepy for sure.
Know that while you are here, you may speak aloud, but you do not need to.
Lokar spoke this with a very authoritative tone. Now I was really creeped out. Telepathy? I was pretty sure that the neighbors weren't telepathic. In fact, I never met anyone who, to my knowledge, was telepathic. Where in the blazes was I? Lokar continued.
Be comforted, however, that if you truly wish your thoughts to be private, they will be. They will be heard only by you.
I thought. So I tested this principle by consciously thinking privately about my favorite Spider-Man underwear and how sometimes I wear it while practicing swinging off the bed lamp chain. The dude didn't flinch, nor did his son. I really hoped it worked.
Okay,
Interrupted Bunny.
here you are in some strange place with some 10-foot-tall, purply-eyed dude who dresses like a science fiction character and reads your mind, and the thing you're worried about is your Spider-Man underwear?
Look, all of this happened really fast. And besides, I'm an 83-year-old talking stuffed rabbit who has accidentally been in the Navy, has unwittingly worked with the CIA, has been inside Area 51, has attended Burning Man at least 13 times, not to mention the countless sci-fi and comic book conventions. I've seen some really weird things. It's hard to shock me.
Baja took a deep breath and another sip of tea, catching his breath.
So Lokar asked his son to get me a pillow, and Dennis arrived momentarily with a small pillow in his hand. Dennis was staring at me with wonder as he picked me up slowly and with such care as to indicate he thought I was going to crumble apart. He placed me onto the pillow, which made of the most beautiful violet-colored shimmery fabric. It felt so soft and comfortable, and it smelled so good. I could barely resist my urge to curl up on it and go to sleep. I thought, I've got to get me one of these when I get back. Dennis giggled slightly when I thought that. He must have also heard my thoughts. Telepathy. I would definitely have to take some time to get used to that. As Dennis began to walk with me on the pillow, I gripped the fringes of it hard, assuming I would be bumped around and that I might fall off. But the ride was not bumpy at all. It was like gliding on a pocket of air. I wasn't accustomed to such grace from such a small child. I laughed at the irony of that thought. Small, huh? He's like 8 feet tall at least. But in spite of his height, he retained the features of an 8-year-old human boy. Although, again, like his father, he was glowier than a regular human. Everything was so clean, said Baja, and smelled really, really good. I couldn't place the smell, but it did seem familiar somehow, like springtime at the farm where the wildflowers were in bloom, and there was honeysuckle everywhere, and my mom was making us salads of alfalfa and lilacs.
Suddenly, Baja looked like he was far away. Bunny knew that smells could sometimes do that for you, bringing your memory back to simpler times. Then Bunny thought of the tree in which he was raised and how it often smelled of rotten acorns and squirrel dung. That brought him back pretty quick. As Baja also snapped back, he cleared his scratchy throat and carried on.
Luca called for someone, and I soon found out that it was his wife, whom he introduced to me.
This is my wife, Medra,
he said as she approached. She walked into the room with a graceful glide like a ballerina, and then curtsied. She was tall and thin, and had creamy ivory skin, and her hair was so pretty. I've never seen such pretty hair. It was basically blonde, but had other shimmery colors that appeared to be reflecting on it. It was wavy and tucked up in tresses with shiny crystally pins all throughout it. I thought that if Bunny had been there, he would have been jealous, gritting her about who her hairdresser is and what special product she uses, and making her prove it wasn't a wig.
Baja looked over at Bunny and acknowledged.
I was glad for a moment that you weren't there.
Bunny shrugged, recognizing that Baja was probably right. That is most likely what he would have done.
So Major bowed to me a little, and I, being kind of in awe of her beauty, bowed back. I am pleased to meet you, Miss Major, I said to her. At this point, pretty convinced I was either dreaming or dead. I was both curious and delirious, so I hadn't yet come to a point where I was fighting the experience. Plus, the experience had been pleasant thus far. And if I was dreaming, then I would eventually know because the giant cheese doodles would be arriving soon.
Jeff and Bunny looked at each other confused, but Baja did not pause and continued on with the story.
Luca and Major were both wearing outfits a lot like what you might see in India. They wore tunics and flowing pants made of clean, natural-looking soft fabric, with complex but subtly colored designs around the neckline and the pant legs. They wore sandals on their feet.
Not to interrupt, but is it possible these were just tallish hippies? Or maybe you stumbled upon some sort of cult?
Asked Bunny, wondering again if Baja had in fact been eating the trumpet vine.
I understand your line of thought, Bunny, but no. There is no patchouli or Grateful Dead music or selling of kind veggie burritos from the backs of VW vans in this place, I assure you. And there is no worshipping of any gods or anything like that. And you'll see more as I tell the story about how different they are from ordinary humans and how amazing this place really is. Anyway, I need to tell you the whole story in order for any of it to make sense.
Baja now sipped and gargled the tea, as his voice was getting progressively more tired from talking. Bunny knew at this point that Baja was completely serious, and whatever Baja had been through, it was certainly real, at least to Baja.
Anyway, as Dennis carried me into the living room, I noticed the house was mostly round and dome-shaped, and there were windows all around. Looking alongside of myself, I noticed that the home overlooked an amazing, surreal view. I mean, this was breathtaking. It was like Lothlorien, the Earth City in the Lord of the Rings.
What, Lori, what? Jeez, you're such a geek,
said Bunny, rolling his eyes at another one of Baja's frequent references to science fiction stories.
Bunny, I've got 2 words for you. Liv Tyler.
Baja reminded him.
Oh, true,
Bunny admitted, having watched and swooned repeatedly during the scenes in the trilogy in which Liv appeared as Arwen, the elf princess.
Was that Lord of the Rings?
You disappoint me,
Baja joked.
truly.
Oh, come on, you know me. One minute I'm just walking through the living room and wrapped to the bathroom where I can moisturize and exfoliate, and the next I'm mesmerized by the hot chick on TV. I don't care what show it is. I just see hot chick.
Yeah, well, personally, I think you ought to give more respect to women, and perhaps you might actually have a lady friend. Anyway, as I was saying,
Baja cleared his throat again.
I was so anxious to go outside and see these stunning surroundings closer that I ran toward the window, trying to climb up and see more of the view. I was thinking that my suction cup sneakers would have come in pretty handy. I could have scaled the window.
It's just as beautiful as it is in your dreams, is it not?
Said Lokar with an air of mystery, again reading my thoughts. I have dreamt about this, I vividly remembered.
I will take you out there shortly and show you around.
As Lokar was talking, I was still staring, not absorbing what he was saying. Dana set me gently upon a window shelf so I could see better, and Lokar stopped so as to be eye level with me to get my attention.
Before we go outside, let us go get you some clothes and something to drink, and let you get your bearings and see how you feel.
He stood tall again and walked toward what looked like a kitchen area. Just then, Lokar's wife, Medra, approached and asked my permission to pick me up, and, permission granted, she gently did so. She brought me up to the height of her face, which was nearly perfect in construction, with beautiful, completely unblemished skin and very large eyes. She smelled like lilacs. I love lilacs. I also like to eat them, but who doesn't? Anyhow, she looked like she was sizing me up, tracing my outline with her eyes. I had forgotten that I was naked, and upon remembering, covered my torso with my arms, feet, and ears. Even though I'm a stuffed rabbit, I have grown unaccustomed to not wearing clothes, and in recent years have felt very odd when I'm not wearing them. She smiled and put her fingers on top of my head. It felt euphoric to be in her presence. She was just so pretty. She set me down on a counter near her and turned to some sort of box that was built into the wall. It looked like a built-in microwave, but without the popcorn button I'd usually be looking for. She stood silent for a moment, looking at the box, like she was meditating. A moment later, a light suddenly filled the box, and to my amazement, a tiny tunic and pants appeared. They were periwinkle blue and had an intricate pattern woven into them. I love blue. How did she know that? Well, wow, I said, staring in disbelief. How did that happen? How did you make those? Is that like a tiny tunic vending machine or something? Major laughed and answered.
It's a type of replicator. It processes our directed thoughts and aids us in manifesting them into matter.
Huh? I said, not quite following her. I've seen replicators on my favorite show, Star Travelers. The Star Travelers replicators work with computers, so I was figuring it worked something like that. At least at this point, I was indeed pretty sure that all of this was a dream, and that I was having it because I fell asleep with the television on again. So I just went with it. I stood on the counter in front of the box on the wall. Staring at the box, I said, very deliberately, "Computer! Cheese doodles! Large!" I was waiting for the box to light up and give me a bag of salty orange cheese doodles to munch on in my dream. It didn't work. I wasn't really hungry, but I thought it would be really cool to replicate cheese doodles. It sure looked easy when Mandra did it, though. It took her all of 9 or 10 seconds to create a really cool outfit for me. Mandra held the outfit between her fingers and held it up to me, sizing it and stretching the waistline.
Let's see if they fit, shall we?
She said, laying the newly replicated clothing at my feet. As I pulled on the pants, I noticed how soft they were and how well they fit. I had never had any clothing that fit so well. The tunic slipped so easily over my shoulders, I didn't even need help getting it on. At once, I was dressed. These are perfect, thank you. They feel really nice. And, oh, I said, sniffing them, they smell so good, too. I just stood there for a few moments, sniffing my new clothes.
Good, then, said Major with a slight giggle. I communicated your exact proportions into the replicator. I'm pleased that you are pleased with them.
As I hadn't heard Major say anything to the computer, and there were no noticeable buttons on it, I had wondered how in the world she had communicated anything to it. This replicator was not quite like Star Travelers, unless maybe this was later in the series. Besides, the way I was figuring, anything could be possible if this was a dream after all, so I humored myself and asked, Nedra, am I on Star Travelers? Or is this maybe a dream where I'm on Star Travelers? Or am I on, like, a practical joke show or something, maybe?
You have very funny thoughts, little one, and a great many of them indeed,
Said Nedra. She smiled and looked at me calmly. She seemed to be studying me.
How should I call you?
She asked with respect.
Do you like to be called Baja?
For a moment, I thought this was my chance to be called something different, like Sir Baja, or Wickedly Cool Baja, or Super Awesome King Baja, or perhaps Baja, Supreme Master of the Universe. But, recognizing that even my ego probably shouldn't extend that far, I conceded. Yes, of course, Baja will be fine. I sat quiet for a moment, a bit unnerved, as she was again studying me. So I guess that means I'm not on Star Travelers? Or any TV shows?
No, my tiny friend.
She was now beginning to prepare something in the kitchen area.
You are not on television, although you may know that Star Travelers is in many ways a very advanced program.
She had a small bunch of leaves that she was crumpling in her fingertips into a cup.
Our children enjoy watching it, and we often use it as an example in our lessons about human culture. Humans conceived of these Star Travelers and other similar programs, movies, and books, you know, as part of their collective memory of what was once part of their daily lives. Humans have a subconscious memory of their own ancient and hidden history, and during their greatest moments, they have a kind of collective notion of how they would like things to once again be. Much of the series for Star Travelers was given to them as a gift, you may say, from themselves, or from above.
She seems very spiritual, I thought silently, like maybe she's Buddhist or something. And she talks very nicely. She doesn't use slang. She hardly uses contractions. I bet she never swears or gets angry and says bad words or belches or farts. I just smiled and let out a small laugh. I kept forgetting about that telepathy thing. This was certainly going to be a challenge. So, where is this place? I asked anxiously. And are you Venusians or something? Or maybe this is France? I asked, just now reaching for any information I could get. I've never been to France. Maybe there were 10-foot-tall purply-eyed people there, I don't know. She sobbed.
You'll learn who we are soon enough. Right now, we need to check your health.
Mildred had taken the cup with the crushed leaves and poured water into it from a stone teapot, and she carried the cup into the living room, where she set it onto the floor. She then pulled me off the shelf, sat on the ground, and placed me next to her, and I got back up onto the shimmery, nice-smelling pillow, which was now on the floor. She took a sip from the cup, set the cup down, closed her eyes, and put her large hands above my head. She appeared to be meditating. I felt a warm kind of buzzing feeling, a little like when I drink too much beer, but without the icky side effects. It was then accompanied by a tingling all throughout my body, like a type of static electricity, from my long floppy ears to the carrots on my feet. She came out of her meditation just a few moments later, and I silently wished she had continued. She looked at me, cocked her head a bit, and said,
You appear to have a clean bill of health now, Baja. You are again balanced.
Neat, I said, but I don't think I've ever been balanced before. Perhaps you could say I am balanced for the first time. Suddenly my thoughts changed gears, and I knew it was time to now ask the question I'd been waiting to ask in the back of my mind. Am I dead? Lokar and Dennis entered the room again, and everyone laughed warmingly. Lokar reassured me.
Dead? No, you are most certainly not dead.
Are you sure? I asked. And if I'm not dead, then where on earth am I? Or is this even Earth at all?
Well,
Said Lokar.
it is Earth, but not quite as you would know it. There are many things that exist in your world that the majority of people do not know about, and that your eyes, seeing only in 3 dimensions, do not see. One of your scientists recently said that your human senses perceive only 1% of what actually is. This is a very wise statement, and one that is entirely true. If you were to see the world around you with 100% of your true vision, you would not believe that you were in the same place.
Aha! I knew it! I felt vindicated for what I'd been preaching. There is no such thing as empty space. I always say that. To me, it's not only the outer space, but the space between things that is the final frontier.
And that, my small friend, is precisely why you are here.
Chimed Lokar, settling onto the sofa bench and sitting back and crossing his legs to make himself more comfortable and more casual. I was sensing that while bits of information were slowly coming out, Lokar and Major were being very cautious about revealing too much. I wondered why. Major then spoke as if to pick up where Lokar left off.
The earth is breathtakingly beautiful in its true state.
Major explained.
Some humans who have developed the ability to see more of what is in this space between things, as you call it, have been known to go mad at the sight of it. It is sometimes difficult to distinguish between third-dimensional objectivity and that which is separate and above this frequency. However, many people of advanced spiritual nature have lived on your planet with full awareness of the totality of life that exists there, and have written many pieces of literature about it, only to be thought of as authors of fiction, mythology, and metaphor. I will one day point out to you some of these writings, which, you may be assured, are not works of fiction, but actual historical accounts. But in the meantime, know that you are here now.
She hesitated for a moment.
To bring some of this awareness back home.
I was still feeling really lost and confused, and still quite certain this was a dream. I was still waiting for the giant cheese doodles. But it was certainly the most vivid dream I'd ever had by a landslide. So again, I kept going along with it, knowing that I would wake up when the alarm clock went off or when I had to go to the bathroom. I asked Major and Lokar, so what do you call this place, this city, anyway?
You would not believe it if I told you where you truly are. Suffice it to say that you are within a higher frequency of Earth. You are not physically all that far from your home and your laboratory, but you are in sort of a higher, lighter dimension.
Wait, a higher dimension? Like a higher vibrational frequency? Lokar and Major nodded. No way! I was so excited I got all balled up and wanted to scream a happy scream. So it worked? My experiment really worked?
Yes, it did. We have been observing you on our computers, not as spies, but in accordance with your own soul agreement. We've been expecting your arrival for quite some time.
This is incredible! I felt like I just won a TV game show. I really wanted to hug Bob Barker. I was jumping around and must have looked like an idiot, but I couldn't contain myself. This was just so very cool. But I was wondering how they knew about these experiments. How were they watching me on their computers? And why? I could tell that Lokar was following my train of thought.
Your last modifications were given to you in a dream, weren't they?
Did I dream those? I didn't remember. But I did remember waking up and thinking of it and being so excited that I forgot to go to the diner for breakfast before it closed. Those who knew me know that it's very unlike Baja to miss breakfast at the diner, so I knew that if something made me forget breakfast, it must have been a good idea.
You have been consulting with us while you sleep.
Lokar continued.
In your transition from your sleep state back to 3D, you do not always remember what you have been experiencing, or your memory of your dream experience is fragmented. But much knowledge has been accumulated, and much personal growth accomplished throughout your lifetime while you have slept. It is recorded as a subconscious memory and retrieved for later use as needed. This is a topic we will discuss at length in a later lesson.
If this was a dream, I was really hoping that I would remember this one. I was determined that when I woke up, I would write everything down before I got going so I wouldn't forget. There was so much good stuff in this dream to remember. But my thoughts then returned to the question I had a moment before, and how they knew I was coming, and how they were watching me on their computers. Again, Lokar was answering my question before I even asked it aloud.
I detect that you are concerned about our motives, and about the technology we have been using to observe you. You are wondering if we have been invading your privacy like Big Brother.
That's just what I was thinking. I was trying not to say so much as to offend my hosts, because they had been very gracious so far, but I was wondering at this point if any of my thoughts or activities had ever been private. If it had been the government that had been watching me, I would have protested that my rights had been violated. Lokar responded to my uneasiness.
I will tell you that although you do not remember it now, This dialogue that we are now having, and all of the activities surrounding it, was an agreement between your true higher self and ours. You summoned all of this. And I know this will sound larger than life to you now, and will be difficult for you to believe. You orchestrated this with our assistance, not just to have a wild dream or a fun adventure. You orchestrated this to do your part for the good of the earth and for all of its creatures.